Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin. 4 college students with bright futures, brutally murdered in the middle of the night, inside what should have been the safety of their own home. No screams heard, no signs of forced entry, and no immediate suspects. As the small town of Moscow, Idaho was paralyzed with fear. Investigators unraveled a chilling trail that led to an unlikely suspect, Bryan Kohberger, a criminology PhD student studying the very thing he was accused of becoming. What really happened inside that house? And could the man who studied killers have become one himself? Title: Idaho Student Murders. Suspect Bryan Kohberger could face the death penalty if convicted. Full episode. It was a quiet, freezing night in the small college town of Moscow, Idaho, November 13th, 2022. The streets were calm, but something dark was about to unfold behind the walls of a 3-story house just off campus. Inside, 4 University of Idaho students lay sleeping, unaware that their final hours had arrived. Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, bright, young lives with dreams still unfolding, were brutally murdered in their beds. The community woke to a nightmare. Police were called to the home around noon. What they found shook even the most seasoned investigators. There was no forced entry, no weapons found, but what chilled them most was the method. Each victim stabbed repeatedly with a knife in what seemed to be a calculated and merciless attack. The media descended instantly. Who would commit such a savage act? Why these students? And why did 2 others in the house survive without even realizing what had happened until morning? The case spiraled into one of the most baffling and high-profile investigations in the country. For weeks, there were no arrests. Whispers turned into theories. Social media swarmed with speculation. Some pointed fingers at boyfriends, others at random strangers. But police were working behind the scenes, quietly building a case. Their break came from something small, something almost invisible to the naked eye. A single sheath of a military-style knife had been left near one of the bodies. It bore a faint trace of DNA. With that, the trail began to take shape. Thousands of miles away in Pennsylvania, 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger was arrested on December 30th. A criminology PhD student at Washington State University, just 10 miles from Moscow, Kohberger wasn't an obvious suspect. He was intelligent, well-spoken, and deeply interested in criminal psychology. But prosecutors believed he had crossed the line from studying killers to becoming one. As more details surfaced, the case took a darker turn. Kohberger had allegedly stalked the victims for weeks. Cell tower records placed him near the crime scene multiple times before the night of the murders. Surveillance captured a white Hyundai Elantra, matching his, circling the area around 4 a.m. the night of the killings. Perhaps most disturbing was the fact that he returned to the scene hours after the crime, as if checking his work. But was it enough to prove guilt? Kohberger maintained his innocence. His defense argued that the DNA was not conclusive, that cell phone data was circumstantial, and that surveillance evidence could be interpreted in many ways. Without a murder weapon or confession, reasonable doubt lingered. Then, in a surprising twist, investigators revealed they had tracked Kohberger's movements days after the murders. He had cleaned out his car meticulously. Not unusual, but a search revealed traces of human tissue and blood in the vehicle, evidence that hadn't yet been explained. Even more disturbing, his internet searches in the days following the murders included articles about the case, victim profiles, and news about the investigation's progress. It was as if he was watching his own story unfold. As the legal battle intensified, prosecutors announced that if Kohberger were convicted, they would seek the death penalty. It was a rare and sobering move, reflecting the brutality of the crime and the terror it instilled in the community. The trial has yet to begin, but the stakes are now higher than ever. What drove a man, fascinated by criminal behavior, to allegedly commit one of the most chilling crimes in recent memory? Was it obsession, a need for control, or something even more twisted? This case may someday have answers, but for now, it leaves behind a trail of pain, mystery, and the haunting reminder that evil can sometimes wear the mask of intellect. And in the end, justice, if it comes, will not bring back the 4 young lives that were lost that night in Idaho. Stay tuned for the next chapter in a case that continues to grip the nation.